So it looks like Jim Pattison, the owner of Save-Ons, all of those billboards, and one of the richest guys in Canada, decided to actually do the right thing. He had pressure from both sides of the border. Many of us Canadians were going to boycott most of his companies, and even those in Virginia where they were going to open up the ICE detainment center, they were protesting as well. So in the end, it looks like it's not going to go through. But I have a follow-up video talking about this that I want to show everybody. I also have another report that many of you sent me. We all know that Alberta put US liquor back on the shelves, but not a lot of us know how it's actually doing. So this report is actually going to give you guys a better idea. Are the citizens of Alberta actually buying the US liquor? So we'll talk about this later as well. And to finish off this video, I'll talk a little bit more about the Orange McNugget's latest threat to Canada, which is to the aviation industry. Now, Todd Maffin had a great video, and I hope you guys saw it. And I'll give my thoughts on it a little later. Not Todd's video, but the whole situation. Today's backdrop comes from Andrew, who sent in this photo from Diana Creek, near Prince Rupert. I know this might sound weird to you guys, but I actually miss the cold weather. I went for a walk earlier today, and it was like 35 degrees. And when it's that hot, you gotta keep going inside for aircon. So I see this photo from Andrew, and it actually looks refreshing. Thanks for sending this in, Andrew. Now, just a quick update. The petition is now at 14,232 signatures, with an end date of February 3rd. If you're new to my channel and you don't know what this petition is for, it's to have the Canadian media reviewed for foreign investors. So if you want to take a look at it, the link will be in the description below. And let's see if we can get it to 15,000 before it closes. And one last final thing before we start. Canada lost a great actor overnight. I will always remember Catherine O'Hara from Home Alone. I must have watched that movie 100 times. But she's also known for her role in Schitt's Creek, as well as being in the season 2 of The Last of Us and many other roles. You will be missed, Catherine, and I can still hear you yelling Kevin in my head. Okay, let's get started.
Blowback against ICE has forced a BC Billionaire's company to cancel a deal with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. In a one-line statement, Jim Pattison Developments says the transaction to sell our industrial building in Ashland, Virginia will not be proceeding. Yasmin Renea has been following this story since it broke earlier this week. You're now here with us, and I mean, there was supposed to be a protest planned against the possibility of this sale. So what is being said here in British Columbia about this now?
Yeah, people were supposed to go to Pattison HQ in downtown Vancouver, and they say they will still gather, but right now they will commemorate the deal not going ahead. As you said, Sarah, Jim Pattison Developments has not explained why the deal is not going through. They just put out a one-line statement, and there's been no response from DHS, but protesters say they're crediting themselves for putting pressure on the company.
I definitely think he caved to the pressure. I mean, his whole reputation was on the line if he did go through with it. But it also shows that my first approach on this was a wait and see. That was the wrong approach. Because if everybody just sat around and waited to see what he would do, chances are he might have completed the deal.
Here's more from one of the organizers of the protest.
This is a celebration. This is why we do this. This is why it's important for Canadians and Americans and all who believe in democracy to keep the pedal to the metal with nonviolent, law-abiding protest.
So earlier this week, Pattison Development said that it accepted an offer to sell the warehouse, as you see here, it's a massive warehouse, to a U.S. government contractor, but that it did not know the ultimate owner of the property or their intentions. And it got a lot of blowback, including from the leader of the BC Green Party, who called for a boycott of Pattison businesses, including Save-On Foods grocery stores. And then staff at those grocery stores actually also spoke out against the deal.
I'm actually glad that the staff at Save-On Foods stood for what is right. Because it is hard to speak up against your boss. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to work for a company where I know my boss is making deals with ICE. I just wonder how the staff at Hootsuite are feeling right now.
Interestingly, one Vancouver ad agency who had paused working with Pattison Developments and Pattison Group says they are still not ready to resume working with the company because they have not provided a rationale for the reversal.
I mean, when you sell a property, you don't always know. I'm thinking a much smaller scale who it's going to end up going to or for what use it's going to be ultimately. But it is not just here in British Columbia that we have seen a blowback to this. The people who live in the area of this warehouse in Virginia, they have also been speaking out. They spoke to Ian last night on our program. What are they telling you?
Yeah, Hanover County residents, a lot of them say they are relieved, that they are thrilled that this deal is not going through. Hundreds of them had protested earlier this week, and they also signed up to talk at a county meeting. One of them is Camilla Hill, and here's why she says she didn't want this facility in her community.
My main number one concern is that ICE is unethical and I believe is operating with impunity and would ruin our community the way that it has in other communities.
She also thanked Canadians for protesting this potential deal. She said she was heartened to see Americans and Canadians kind of fighting for the same cause amid tensions between the two countries, Sarah.
It is good to see people on both sides of the border agree on this. And in the end, the right result happened. But unfortunately, what's going to happen is that ICE is going to move on, and they're going to find another building, and it's going to go up. But at least the Jim Pattison group stood up for what is right. Now, speaking of standing up for what is right, we all know that Alberta and Saskatchewan put the US booze back on their shelves. I think we were all pretty disappointed with that. And ever since then, I've always been wondering, are Albertans still buying the US booze? Well, now we have a bit of an answer on that.
Alberta's border has been open to U.S. booze for nearly 8 months now, and the federal government dropped tariffs back in September. So, how are the shelves looking down at your local liquor store?
To summarize, I would say that Albertans have walked away from U.S. products.
The association representing Alberta's 1,600 private liquor stores says the anti-U.S. sentiment is still strong.
People are just not happy with what's going on in today's world with the United States, and they're choosing to not buy their product. The hardest hits have been the wines from the United States. What's still kind of steady are some of the spirits, such as bourbon or whiskeys.
Good. Let those bottles collect dust. I have always actually been wondering whether or not people are still buying. So when I was sent this report, I was really happy to hear the news. Now, I'm sure not every single bottle is staying on the shelves. My guess is that those who want to separate in Alberta and become part of the United States are the ones who are buying. But this is a good in-your-face to the US liquor industry saying that, hey, it's available to us, but we're still not buying.
The manager of this downtown liquor store sees that too.
We're about 70% down year-on-year sales for U.S. wine specifically.
The province's liquor wholesaler says the volume of U.S. booze brought into Alberta started drying up a couple years ago. Since 2023, spirits fell 13.5%, wine plunged 42%, refreshment beverages such as coolers and hard seltzers dropped 70%, and U.S. beer took the biggest hit, down 92% over the 3-year period.
I'm actually really glad to see these numbers, especially the US water being down 92%. But overall with the US liquor industry, I remember doing reports in the past where the US liquor executives were so happy that Alberta and Saskatchewan were putting it back on their shelves. And their expectation was that the Albertans were going to rush back to the liquor store to buy their crap. Well, this proves they're not. So well done to anyone watching this right now from Alberta.
But no to those 2025 numbers include the 3-month period when Alberta banned U.S. booze imports. Storts says U.S. sales were starting to rebound slightly. Then, this month, the U.S. president threatened 100% tariffs on Canadian goods and called Prime Minister Carney governor. Now, Storts says he's not sure what to expect.
I haven't specifically heard from clients yet about their U.S. wine.
Some importers also report a slight rebound before the latest Canada-U.S. dust-up. They say sales had also recovered a bit.
And they're connected to the people, the place, the wine.
This company imports wine from around the world and distributes it across Western Canada. In the early days of the trade dispute, sales of U.S. wine dropped 40%. Last month, the decline was not as steep. But Jason Dennis says U.S. producers are still feeling pressure.
The American wineries obviously feel like they're caught in a really bad position because it's not something they asked for.
Okay, I don't fully agree with that. For those who didn't vote for the Orange McNugget, yes, I do feel for them. But for anyone in the liquor industry, and even this guy, I hate this guy. These are the ones that actually voted for the Orange McNugget. And I have zero sympathy for these people. Because everything that they're experiencing right now came with the vote after they checked their name beside the Orange McNugget.
Stortz says he's taking a glass half full view of the situation. He says lower demand for U.S. products is creating new opportunities.
We really wanted to highlight the great Canadian producers, so we moved U.S. wine to another area, and we actually moved the Canadian wines above U.S. wine, so that even when someone is looking at U.S. wine, they're immediately presented with Canadian options as well.
And those American options will remain available in the province. The Minister of Service Alberta says, quote, a ban would harm businesses and workers on both sides of the border, and the choice of what to buy should be left to Albertans, not government.
Now, if you've been watching my videos regularly and you're from Alberta, I already know that you guys are boycotting. Let's just hope the rest of Alberta continue to make these U.S. liquor bottles collect dust. Now, last thing I want to talk about. The Tangerine Tyrant is having another temper tantrum again, this time on the Canadian aviation industry. Let's take a look.
Go ahead. Even without prompt, the president found some time to dump on Canada.
Canada's not doing well. They're doing very poorly. And you can't look at China as the answer.
But it wasn't just digs. Donald Trump coming out with his latest tariff threat, promising to decertify Canadian planes because Transport Canada has not certified some American-made aircraft.
Now, if you haven't watched Todd Maffin's video yet, he lays it out very clearly who this is going to affect. If the Tangerine Tyrant decides to decertify our planes that are already in the United States, well, that's going to hurt everyone that's going to be flying regionally. If you haven't seen Todd's video yet, I'll leave a link in the description below.
Canada has wrongfully, illegally, and steadfastly refused to certify the Gulfstream 500, 600, 700, and 800 jets. If Canada doesn't comply, Trump is warning a 50% tariff on all Canadian-made planes.
Gulfstream went to the president and complained, and therefore we have the presidential edict last night.
As often is with Trump, his facts are partially off. The Gulfstream 500 and 600 are already approved in Canada and flying out of Toronto. As for the other Gulfstreams, there have been issues with de-icing tests holding up Transport Canada, who, unlike U.S. officials, rely less on the manufacturer for approval.
Gulfstream have their own design approval authority, and these aircraft were primarily certified through that organization.
The transport minister giving a limited statement, saying his department is in communication with their U.S. counterparts, and our government is actively working on this situation.
Now, I'm not in the aviation industry, and I have no idea what the de-icing thing is. But if that is the thing that's holding it up, and it is part of the Canada regulation, can't we just work together to get it done? I don't think bending our Transport Canada rules just to appease the Mango McNugget is the right way to go. Because the problem that I see is that you do it once, and you bend the knee to him. He's just going to keep doing it.
While Trump has no authority to be able to decertify planes, which would ground hundreds of Canadian-made aircraft owned by U.S. airlines, it has spooked investors, sending Bombardier stock down over 6%. The company has major political influence in Quebec, employing over 10,000 people, but it also has operations in Ontario and the U.S.
There's components that are built in the U.S. that come here and that are destined to be put on planes here in Canada that will then be delivered from Canada to a customer.
The aerospace threats are just one of many Trump has levied in recent months, including a 10% tariff because he was mad about the Ontario government's anti-tariff ad, and a 100% tariff because of the Prime Minister's trade agreements with China. But so far, Trump has yet to follow through on either of those threats.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of these threats. Tariffs on, tariffs off. Tariffs on, tariffs off. We already know his playbook. He's going to threaten the tariffs. Something's going to happen in terms of like an agreement. Then he's going to brag that he fixed the problem. I don't think any of us should be surprised. That is what's going to happen. But regardless of that, these back and forth flip-flop decisions and threats, I feel for those that work at Bombardier. It's just unnecessary issues that we don't actually need right now. But our Canadian aviation industry, and quite frankly, all of our industries, needs to start figuring out what a plan B is going to be. Because most of the time he tacos. But there might be times where he doesn't. I have no solution to this. I'm not in the industry. I really don't know what can be done. But I'm sure the higher-ups at Bombardier have already thought about this. So we'll have to see how it goes. Okay, that's all I got for today's video. If you're watching this video as it's being released, keep an eye for my next video that's going to be released in about an hour and a half. I have a great conversation with Jason from Wrong Enough to Know Better, and we talk about all things Canada. But if you're watching this well after this has been released, then check out my channel under the interviews and discussion if you want to check out that video. If you found any value in anything I said today, help out my channel by hitting the like and subscribe button below. Thanks everyone. I'll see you in the next one.